shall feel the wrath of Hulkamania.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Get ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
It is the BJ Show. I am Brad. He is John. Together we make BJ. Imagine how that is. And John Combest. John, speak up there for a minute. Let everybody know that you're here.
I'm here, Brad.
He's
Good
here.
morning.
You know, the reason I do that is sometimes I listen to other talk shows and I critique them, and the guest will, or the host will say, hey, here's Jim Smith, and Jim Smith's a wonderful guy, and he's written 22 books, and he's starred in 36 films, and, you know, Jim is one of my favorite, let the guy in. Hey, Jim, how you doing? But in this case, it's John, not Jim, right?
Yeah, thank you, Brad. And you know what? You mentioned the BJ Show. Driving through St. Charles County yesterday, I heard a promo for the TJ Show, Brad. What's that all about?
Well, we'll talk about that later. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Deal.
Okay, John puts together this website. Been doing it for a long time. He won't even tell me when the exact date is. Coming sometime this month, but he either has memory loss or he's a very private person. One of the two.
I can mention it today. Can I interrupt you? I can mention it today, Brad.
No. Let's wait till the actual day, and then you mention it. You go, hey,
what
Brett.
if the actual day already passed?
Well, then we're SOL, you know.
Well, then we can wait till next year. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry, Brad. Go ahead.
Simple as that. John puts together this list every day and puts it on the website of what he deems to be the most important stories going on in the state of Missouri. He goes and checks all these different websites, finds all this various stuff. Sometimes it's governmental issues. Sometimes it's just human interest. Sometimes it's wacky kind of stuff, but it's the state of Missouri news. He puts it together, and then what we do is, in this show, we bring in this guy right here.
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what do you do, Casey?
We're on our way to the number one.
And we start off with?
In third place.
One of the funniest storylines is thanks to you, Brad. In the last 2 weeks, the funniest storyline on this show has been your narrative about the potential jobs of Bill Eigel. And at first, Brad, I was confused. I was shocked. I didn't know what was real and what was not. But we have real hard news to supplement some of your storytelling about what Bill Eigel might be up to next. And that's because Bill Eigel filed paperwork to potentially run for Congress in Missouri's 2nd Congressional District, represented by Wagner. Did you see any of these headlines, Brad?
Well, isn't he a little bit too late for that, or is this like the next election cycle?
He doesn't mean 2024.
I was gonna say.
It would be sometime in the future, like 2026.
I don't know. I mean, there's been, for like the past 2 or 3 congressional elections, there's been the rumor that Ann she's sort of tired and she wants to come back home, and the usual stuff, which I get aggravated. It's funny because of the fact that was the episode that got a lot of attention, at least on YouTube, where I called Mr. What's his name again?
Ludwig Meyer, a wimp.
Well, yeah, I called him a wimp because what do you always hear from these people? Well, I want to spend more time with my family. Wimp. I know you feel strongly about it. Well, let's get back to that retirement angle in a second. Let's talk about Eigel first. He did file paperwork on Monday with the FEC, and you have to put down what you could potentially run for, and he put Missouri's 2nd Congressional District. Now, for folks who don't follow these type of things that closely, which I think most folks who listen to the show follow these things closely, but just because you file paperwork doesn't mean that you're committing to run. If Bill Eigel were to file paperwork and say that he was looking at a countywide office in St. Charles County, that's not the same thing as declaring a run for St. Charles County Executive. But it's a way to set up the infrastructure in case you want to move in that direction. But the newsy part of it was that yesterday, Ann Wagner came out and said, it's an honor to serve the 2nd District. I will be running for re-election in 2026. And then Ann's statement says something to the effect of, or I should say this, I should quote it verbatim because it's interesting. Quote,
We should all be focused on helping elect President Trump, defending our great Republican state legislators here in the 2nd District, growing our U.S. House majority, and taking the U.S. Senate majority. In other words, everybody stop talking about 2026. Let's just focus on next month for now, and then we can talk about 2026.
Okay, I've got a question, though.
Yep.
He filed paperwork. Since he's not actually going down to the Secretary of State's office or whatever, what paperwork is that?
It's federal paperwork with the FEC. You can just file it online.
In other words, he's essentially saying, I've started a campaign and I'm going to start filing FEC reports with you as far as fundraising and stuff like that. Is that what
That's exactly right. And to be clear, Brad, when folks declare that they're running for office, when folks make a big deal about filing day in Jeff City, yes, you physically need to be present. But you could form a campaign committee today from the comfort of your own home.
Well, John, I just want to take this moment to give you a scoop on something. As a matter of fact, this will probably
I'm ready.
This will be number one. I am officially declaring myself a candidate for President of the United States in the 2036 election.
Wow. Now you're going to be running from the grave.
I'll be, at that point in time, I'll be like, what, 102 or something like that?
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good to know. We'll have a seance when we want to know your policy positions.
Well, now hold on a minute. Now, Jimmy Carter is officially 100 now, so you know what? There's a chance.
Brad, have you seen anything as disturbing? Why did they wheel him out?
Well,
did you see those pictures, Brad?
No, I didn't. And quite honestly, I don't really. I mean, he looks really bad, I would assume, right?
Yeah. And I'm not. That's not a gag. Like, I just don't know why. I'm assuming the pictures I saw were real, but I just don't know. And you and I have both had parents who've gotten older and passed away. I just don't know why you would want to let the man go in peace, you know? Anyway.
Well, you know, I mean, I be honest with you, John, there are people around that, matter of fact, one of the guys was on Mark Reardon's show, and unfortunately he passed away. But, I mean, once again, all these World War II vets, probably the youngest World War II vet right now would be 98 or 99 or something like that, because of the fact that you figure that the war ended in 45, and let's just say the war ended at 44, so that would be 80 years ago. Okay, so if a young guy, you know, got drafted in 44 when he was 18, or let's say he signed up when he was 18, that would make him essentially 98 or 99 today. So most of the guys who were in it from the beginning, like my dad, if we're still alive, my dad was born in 1920, so he would be 104 today. You know, I mean, most of those guys are gone, but Mark Reardon had a guy on his show who was at the time like 99 or 100, sharp as a tack. And I saw a picture of him, looked pretty damn good. You know, so once again, I have this theory that once people hit 40, there are women out there who are in their 60s and 70s who look like they're 42. There are women out there in their 60s and 70s look like they're 92. And the same thing for men. I think, and quite honestly, I think men age worse than that. Perfect example. When I see Tim Walz, I think he's like, you know, he went to high school with Joe Biden. I mean, he just looks old to me. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know who he went to high school with, but he was friends with a number of school shooters. Let's get back to Bill Eigel, though. So Bill Eigel could run for pretty much anything. I mean, we know that he won St. Charles County huge in the statewide race. He won Franklin County. He won his area. I don't know, if you're Bill Eigel, why you don't run for county executive in 2026 in your home county, run against Mike Elam, and then whoever chooses to file against Mike and Bill can also partake in that race. Maybe you think St. Charles County is too small potatoes for you. I don't know. I'm not suggesting Bill would think that, because I don't know. But, you know, he could win. I think he has a great chance to win St. Charles County if he were to choose to run in that race. But, you know, Ann Wagner is also an option. And Ann Wagner today, I think we should take it at face value when she says she's running in 2026.
You know, having said that about Bill, I think that he's going to be doing a great job of the next 2 years when he's on with Glenn Beck. So
yeah, and Rachel Maddow, because he's doing both shows. He's doing a show on MSN, and then he's doing Glenn Beck, and then he's coming on right after the TJ show on Westplex 107.1. Should
we call Bill this morning and congratulate him?
No, we can't, because we have to. We got to go do that other thing, including story number 2.
What's the other thing we got to do? I can't remember.
Move on to story number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
Senator Eric Schmitt was in North St. Louis. Brad, you're familiar with this area really well. Both of our parents grew up in North St. Louis City. This is at Cass and Jefferson, I guess across from where Pruitt Eigel used to be. Eric Schmitt toured the NGA, the new NGA facility, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency site in St. Louis, talked about what kind of jobs will be brought, kind of job training will be brought to the St. Louis area, and how much it means for the data ecosystem and the education ecosystem here. And he also had in tow with him, Brad, and this is going to play into story number 1 as a bit of a teaser, but he had U.S. Senator Roger Wicker from Mississippi with him, who is the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. And I should point out that this story is brought to us by Joe Holloman of the Post-Dispatch. And in Holloman's piece, they went off-site so that they weren't on government property and that they could ask Schmitt about the VP debate and Kamala and things of that nature. But the real focus of Senator Schmitt being in North St. Louis City was to talk about NGA and how much it's going to mean. And for your calendar, Brad, the site is supposed to open about a year from now in fall 2025. And it's anticipated that most workers who are working at a nearby facility would move into their cubes, their offices, whatever, in spring of 2026.
And I don't know if you know about this, but you may have missed this, but Pete Buttigieg has come out in favor of the longshoreman strike and has agreed with everything that they said, that there should be a huge wage increase and guaranteed no automation. And yesterday, he toured the new NGA site as well, too, with the longshoreman, and he vowed that if he has anything to do with it, there will be no automation whatsoever at the new NGA site, and everything will be going back to drafting tables and doing things with pen and pencil. So
I love that idea. Well, first of all, Pete Buttigieg came out a long time ago, right? And I mean, if there's a bunch of longshoremen, I mean, we could assume Pete's going to be there.
Listen to John. John, I'm sorry. I heard a quote of him on this morning. I'm telling you, every time I hear that guy talk, I think to myself, you could say, hey, Pete, what do you think about the inverse transition of neutrons as opposed to electrons? And he would just start talking and nothing would make any sense, but yet he would talk for 5 minutes. I mean, the guy can just talk. And does he make any sense? No, he doesn't make any sense. You know, God,
so you're saying he's the gay white version of KJP?
No, I say the sad part of politics is that, you know, go back to the 2000 cycle. All the people that ran against, Biden in the presidential primary, they all got rewarded by dropping out, by getting something. Obviously, Kamala Harris got rewarded with being a vice president. Pete Buttigieg got the Department of Transportation, which he knows nothing about. You know, I mean, once again, that would be like me if all of a sudden the dean or the president of Washington University called this morning and says, Brad, we want you to be the dean of the medical school. Oh, great. Just what I'm really good at that. I got a Band-Aid on my finger, and last week, I went to the doctor.
You got kind of a gimp when you're walking in the parking lot?
I got a limp. It just... I don't think these people are qualified. And we go from Governor Granholm, who is the governor of Michigan, to all of a sudden she's the energy secretary. What the hell does she know about that? I mean, and it's like, if you've ever seen this guy, they trot him out every once in a while, and he just, a good old, our buddy John Kennedy and even Josh Hawley has a field day with this guy who is head of the BATF. The guy is clueless. I mean, the guy has no idea what he's talking about. And he sits there with a stupid look on his face, and he says, well, I'm not privileged to that information. And they ask him things that he should know. It's sort of like, I think it was like when for whatever reason, John Kennedy interviewed the guy who was going to be made the head of the airport in Denver, and John goes through this whole thing. Are you a pilot? No, I'm not a pilot. Have you ever dealt with the FAA before? No, I've never dealt with the FAA before.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this? Why is this guy going to be? Because it's politics. It's like the people in city politics. It's like the people in county politics. I mean, it's to the point where it doesn't make any sense who they appoint. It's just all political back scratch, right? Isn't that what it really is?
The next thing you're going to be telling me that St. Louis City is giving grants to people that are political cronies and making up education jobs that don't exist. Boy, when it comes to managing workflow, we could get right into story number 1.
The number 1.
To quote the iconic rap group NWA, the mother bleepin' saga continues. Brad, this time it's about radiation victims in North St. Louis County. Excuse me, I had to clear my throat there. Jason Rosenbaum, who has been all over this for many years, is Jason Rosenbaum of St. Louis Public Radio. The headline today, a top Senate Republican doubts radioactive waste compensation bill will pass this year. And Jason spoke with Senator Roger Wicker, who we mentioned in story number 2 from Mississippi, the chair of the, the ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, doesn't expect a measure compensating people to come into law this year. You know, Brad, there's been speculation, and I think we could say hope from some people, that the House of Representatives would take up this RECA bill and give compensation to folks here in the St. Louis area who grew up near Coldwater Creek, Weldon Spring, that area. But according to this gentleman from Mississippi, he doesn't think it's going to happen. And in fact, there was a little bit of a tiff last year, Brad, because as I read this Rosenbaum story, Josh Hawley wanted to attach the spending part of RECA onto a bill that was going through Wicker's committee. And Wicker was pretty much like, no, that's a little expensive. You guys should do the RECA stuff separately. So Wicker came out and said as much yesterday in this conversation with Rosenbaum, and Josh Hawley had a response. According to Rosenbaum, Hawley said, "What an ill-informed and frankly insulting attitude towards the victims of nuclear radiation in Missouri. This is the kind of intransigence we have had to fight at every step. But we prevailed in the Senate. Now the House must schedule a vote as soon as they return." So that's a little friction, Brad, between Republicans here of how to pay for this. You know that the whole conundrum has been, I think everyone on both sides seems to say that this is important, but half of the people in Congress, it seems, don't want to actually spend money on it. You know, so it looks like, based on these comments, Brad, if you're Don Chapman from Just Moms STL, or you're one of these advocates for radioactive compensation, looks like you won't get your wish this year.
And to me, that's so sad, because what do we have going on right now? We have talks in the city for reparations. I mean, I'm sorry, but to me, if you put this on the old balance beam scale and you say, okay, reparations on one side, and these people who are unwilling, unknowing, whatever, victims of this radiation poisoning in North County, and not necessarily in North County. There's sites in North City as well, too, which nobody talks about, because remember where all this stuff was refined. It was refined in the city of St. Louis, and then the tailings were trucked out to, at that point in time, no man's land, which was essentially Hazelwood and the north side of the airport. I just think that's so sad. And maybe it's because of the fact that I'm a North County guy and I've seen, the situation with this. I have friends of mine who have died from cancer. And once again, one of the women I know who died of cancer lived right next to Coldwater Creek. And her sisters used to, bounce around, go swimming in Coldwater Creek. I mean, and to this day, and then what the story you had last week, that they're putting up signs now along Coldwater Creek.
Which is timely.
Yeah, right. Only 80 years later, right?
Yeah. It's a good time to have warning signs up there.
Right.
It's symbolism, and it's something. But yeah, it seems like the saga is never ending. And Brad, I mean, I think in most of these cases, you could always bet. We talked about this yesterday. When it comes to a reparations committee, let's say meeting a deadline, in politics or government, just always bet on the over. If a reparations committee says, no, we'll totally have this stuff done by September, just give us more time, you can bet that come September, they won't be done. Well, and if you're expecting the federal government, if you're expecting the Senate and the House to take action in November, get real. Like, this isn't going to happen.
No, but you're missing a point. You forgot to ask of what year, not necessarily.
That's a great point.
Not necessarily this September, this November, maybe November of 2026 or something like that. And by the way, I do have it on authority that someone corrected me on that the reason that they put up all these signs somewhat belatedly in 80 years after the fact in North County is because of the resurgence of the 5-man electrical band. But that's a whole nother story.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Are they the same group that sang the skunk song that I was unfamiliar with?
No.
Okay.
You know who the 5-man? See, I got John on an obscure reference.
I have no idea who that is.
Signs everywhere. A sign. Watching out.
Wow. That was like an old timey song. I remember hearing that in 1980s commercials.
And the sign said, "Long-haired freaky people need not apply." So I tucked my hair under my hat and go in to ask him why. How am I doing?
Ooh, very good. Is that some kind of Jefferson Airplane ditty or Grateful Dead?
No, it's the 5-man electrical band.
Oh, that's their name. I see. Okay,
yes.
I thought maybe they were, maybe they opened for them. Thought maybe they opened with the swag or something.
I believe another one-hit wonder, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, we have to take a break. And by the way, my mouse is sticky this morning.
Well, Brad, I hope people realize that that's from yesterday's show and not just, because you've been watching your Tulsi Gabbard videos again.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?